68mm downpipe fittings. So they're all manufactured by FloPlast. All of them are manufactured by FloPlast because as you can see, you'll see the FloPlast whiting on them. So there's FloPlast whiting on the shoe, and also on the branch, and also on the bend. So 92.5 and 112.5, and also on a wedge clip. See what here, but it will not have whiting on the saddle clip. So there's no whiting, you see. Yeah, no whiting at all on the saddle clip, and also on the straight coupling there's also no whiting at all. No whiting, yeah. But they're all manufactured by FloPlast in the looks of it, so they are definitely FloPlast. So let's start with pipe clips. So in a 68mm downpipe range from FloPlast is that there's two kinds of clips to use. So most people use the saddle clips because saddle clips are just simple to use, and they have two screw holes. So you've got one screw hole on either side. So it's a 2-screw fixing clip. So saddle clip, you want to call them. And the product code for a saddle clip in 68mm size is RC1. And so these are the most common clips to use. And they have 2 screw holes, so 1 screw on either side of the fitting. And also there's a alternative clip to use other than a saddle clip. So this is a wedge clip. So a wedge clip is a fitting that is a kind of clip, so it's got that wedge design at the back, and it's got like a fastening on the side, so it clicks into place or so. And then the product code for wedge clip is RC3, as seen on the writing right here. So FloPlast RC3, so it's a 68mm wedge clip. And these clips are just not so common because what you use these clips is that these clips would be used on like areas that has like limited space, like i.e. if you install a 68mm downpipe at the corner of the property, and if standard clips are not suitable like the RC1 right here, then you can use the wedge clips as alternative, because you have like because of the way it's designed is that it's only got 1 screw hole right here. So as you can see, so you got like the top view, and then you got the bottom view, and then at the bottom view is you place your screw where that hole is and then screw it onto the wall, and then you lift this up, and then you open the wedge clip, and then you open it further, and then you slide your downpipe onto it, and then once it's slide on, and then you fasten it by lifting this up, and then click it in place like that also. And so these clips are usually used on like buildings, like perhaps conservatories or so, because conservatories might have limited space for the downpipe, so those will be the clips to use. Yeah, and they only got a single screw, so the screw will be at the bottom, because the reason you have a single screw in the center is it makes the installation much tidier as it hides the screws. For some people it makes it more happier that if they want to have no screws exposed on their downpipes, is they could use wedge clips instead, opposed to the saddle clips. Yeah, but most people use saddle clips because they're just more common. But with wedge clips, they're also popular, but they're not so common to use. So is that is that the unique thing about wedge clips is it's just has a single screw right here, and then the screw is obscured by the downpipe once it's installed. That means it hides the screw much better also when you using these wedge clips. So after you slide your downpipe onto this wedge clip or so, is it hides the screws once this is installed, because when it's fully installed onto the property, like if my downpipe had single fix clips like the wedge clip, and it's for the 68mm, then you will not see the screws. Also, the screws will be concealed, something like that. But if most people use standard clips, like this is a saddle clip, but you can still see the screws on either side or so. But with the wedge clips, it makes the installation more tidier because you will not see the screws, something like that. Yeah, so those are the clips. And then moving on to the bends, so there's two kinds of offset bends for the 68mm pipe system from FloPlast. So you have the 92.5 degrees, some people call it 90-degree bends, but typically it isn't. So this one usually goes around like a corner. Like you can use it to go around a corner of a property, or changing the direction of a downpipe from vertical to horizontal. So typically this one is for the 68mm. So as you can see, where the writing is, it says FloPlast 68mm times 68mm. So 68mm times 68, yeah, 68 times 68 means 68mm. So that's the diameter of the fitting. So it's for the downpipe, the circular downpipe. The angle is 92.5, and then the product code is RB1 or so. So this is for the 68mm circular pipe system. Although some people complain this as a 90-degree, but it's not. It's actually 2.5 degrees of 90, because you'll have a 2.5-degree drop. So you need to have at least a 2.5-degree drop of 90, so the water can flow effectively. So, and these bends are usually used under on properties that have like a long soffit or so, something like that. Or if it's used to if it's used to go around a corner of a building, like if it's like external or internal, something like that. And then the fitting has a socket at the top, so your pipe will slot into the socket, and in the spigot at the bottom, that means your pipe will slot around a spigot or so, something like that. Because this goes again, this doesn't have a seal, so that's why it has to be the correct way, because it goes with gravity also. If it's been installed the wrong way, that will cause a pipe to leak also, something like that. So this bend is used to go around, usually go around corners, or if you have a long soffit, and also from changing the downpipe from vertical to horizontal or so. And you'll need two of those. Usually you'll need to use two to make like an offset or so. And then moving on to 112.5 degree bends, those are the most common bends to use as offset bends, because you have a bit of a kick also, so you have more of a drop or so. So this one is 20 degrees wider, or 20 degrees larger than this one. So this one is 20 degrees less, but this one is 20 degrees more. So 92.5, 112.5. So the difference is that it's 20 degrees between. So this one is more and this one is less. So So if you see on the RB2, so that's the product code, RB2, yeah, the writing will be at the back of the fitting. But on RB1, as you can see, the writing is on the side of the fitting. So that's, yeah, see the writing is on the side right here. But if you pay attention to the RB2, the writing will be at the back. And then again, it's FloPlast. And then diameter is 68 times 68, so 68 millimeter. And then angle is 112.5 degrees. So it's 20 degrees more than 92.5 degrees. And product code is RB2. So RB2 would be 112.5 degree bend for 68mm pipe system, whilst the RB1 is 92.5 degrees. And then these bends are the most popular bends to use as swam necks. So you'll need to buy 2 of those to make a swam neck. And also usually fit that on directly onto the running outlet or so. But if you have a slight deep fascia, then you might need to put like a little section of pipe or a straight coupling to fill like a gap or so, something like that. Yes, if there's a need to. And then you always need to use 2 of those to make a swam neck or so. And the important thing of using these bends, so whenever 92.5 degree or 112.5 degree, is that sockets have to face up, as you can see right here, and spigots have to face down, because it goes with gravity. So that means if the offset bends were not installed properly, like if they're not installed properly, because the spigot facing upwards, socket facing downwards, then the downpipe could leak also. So that would be both bends, so 92.5 and 112.5. Because the fact that with the spigot end, the pipe slots around the spigot and the spigot slots into the downpipe, and it doesn't have a seal, that will means it will leak. And that will be the same with like that if the socket is not facing the proper way, like socket facing downwards, and then because the socket is designed for the downpipe to slot into the socket of the fitting, and again it doesn't have a seal in it, that will cause a pipe to leak. So it's always important to keep the downpipe like it's always important to have the offset bends the right way. So sockets have to face up, spigots have to face down. So it'll be on 92.5 degrees and 112.5 degree bends. And then that goes the same with the straight coupling, because again the socket will be at the top, spigot at the bottom. And straight couplings, so the straight couplings are the fittings used to connect 2 lengths of downpipes together on longer runs. So if you have like a 2-story high building or 3-story building, and if your downpipe was too short, then to extend the length of the downpipe is use straight couplings. But always make sure that they're installed the right way, because the socket should face up, spigot should face down. The downpipe will slot into the socket right here, and then the spigot will slot into another downpipe. So that means that's the right way. If it's been installed the other way, that will leak, because the spigot is designed to slot into the downpipe, and then the socket designed to slot onto the downpipe, and it doesn't have a seal in it, like no rubber seal, that will cause the pipe to leak also. So it's always important to have the fittings the right way. Sockets face up, spigots face down also. And then next is you have the branch. So a branch is a fitting is to connect one downpipe into a main downpipe. So if you have one downpipe going into another downpipe, you can use a branch. And as you can see with a branch, you have 2 sockets. So you've got a socket on the top and a socket on the side, and then you've got a spigot at the bottom or so. Something like that. So your downpipes will slot where So your downpipes will slot into the sockets right there, and the spigot of the branch will slot into the downpipe. So that means this fitting connects 3 downpipes also, 1, 2 and 3. And usually if you have like a bend going into the branch or so, is usually use the same angle of bend. So the bend is 112.5 degrees, same with the branch, so it has to be the same angle. But if you're using the 92.5 degree bend and with the 112.5 degree branch, it will not work because the angles don't match. So you have to use this bend and then along with this branch to match the angle. And then the product code for the 68mm branch is RY1. See what here, where the writing is? RY1, 68mm, 67.5 degrees. So 67.5 degrees is 112.5 degrees. So it's the same angle. And then you can also put a bend, like this offset bend can be fixed onto the side of the branch on that socket. So if you have another guttering going into the main downpipe, you can use this bend and then put the branch like that. But you need to use like a running outlet or a stop end outlet or so. And also you have to make sure that the downpipes are level. Like make sure that these are level properly. So like that. And then there you go. And then offset bend can fit directly onto the branch like that, which is kind of nice. But if you have a bit of a distance, then you might need to put a bit of pipe between. So you need to cut a little bit of 68mm downpipe and then fill the gap between the spigot of the bend and then the socket of that branch or so. Something like that. Which is kind of cool, yeah. And finally, you have the shoe. So the shoe is a fitting that fits at the bottom of the downpipe. And then you usually fit that over the gully or the grate or so. And that directs the rainwater away from the building. So, yeah. And you've got a socket right there. And then your downpipe will slot into the socket of the shoe to give it a connection. And you've got that space where beneath the socket you have a bit of space, and that space will be for your pipe clips. So it will be either the wedge clips, so the RC3, or the saddle clips, the RC1. And then the clip will just snap onto the shoe like that. Simple. So like that. But it can be fiddly to fix it on because of the way the downpipe shoe is designed, because it's got that bulge right there. So it can be a bit fiddly to fix your pipe clips on, but it takes a bit of effort. But once you took a bit of effort, then that will be problem solved. Then you don't need to worry about the pipe breaking or so, or the clips breaking, something like that. As long as it does the job, then yeah. And then the writing on the shoe will be on that side, you see. And it's FloPlast, diameter 68mm, which is for your 68mm circular downpipe. The product code is RB3. You can see what here. Something like that. And it's got that bit of a kick or so at the bottom of the shoe. It's got that bit of a kick. Something like that. Yeah, and then the downpipe shoe can be swiveled freely. Like you can swivel the downpipe because it's round. You can swivel it once it's installed. So you can change the direction also, unlike square downpipes or so. And there you have it. You have the 68mm downpipe fittings also. So you have the pipe clips, offset bend, so you got 112.5 degrees, 92.5 degrees, a shoe, a branch and a straight coupling. And here you have it. Those are the 68mm downpipe fittings as I've showcased you today. Here you go.